Water covers more than 70% of Earth's surface, and it is the element that sustains all known life. Earth holds around 1,386 million cubic kilometers of water. Most of it is salty in oceans and seas. Barely 2.5% is fresh. And of that tiny fraction, almost 70% is locked in glaciers and polar ice caps. The rest is spread in rivers, lakes, atmospheric vapor, and above all, in gigantic underground aquifers. Ogallala in North America, Guarani in South America, and the systems beneath the Sahara. Reserves that equal the sum of thousands of hidden lakes underground. Earth's water is abundance and mystery. After reviewing how much we have, the uncomfortable question arises: how did it get here? Science offers two paths. The first, that water was present from the very beginning, trapped in the minerals of an incandescent planet. The second, that it arrived later, carried by comets and icy asteroids. Both explanations sound reasonable until they are put to the test. If everything depended on Earth retaining its water thanks to its magnetic field, then Mars is the perfect counterexample. It lost its magnetism, it lost its atmosphere, and it lost its oceans. Case closed, science would say. But if we look outward, the logic breaks. Europa, Enceladus, Ganymede and Callisto have no magnetic fields comparable to Earth's, and yet they are overflowing with ice, and even with subsurface oceans. Some expel jets of water into space. So, is the magnetic field indispensable or not? It depends on whom you ask. Another explanation is distance from the Sun. According to the theory of the hot zone, the 4 rocky planets were born too close to the Sun to retain water in a stable form. Only beyond the asteroid belt could water condense as ice. That is why the giant planets and their moons are frozen worlds, and the inner ones, dry worlds. Earth, in that framework, is a statistical mistake. And how do you correct a mistake? With an ingenious solution. We are told that the oceans came with asteroids and comets, delivered like an interplanetary home delivery of frozen water. The idea sounds picturesque until the numbers are run. To fill the oceans, between 40 and 60 million Halley-type comets would be needed. Translated, a comet 10 kilometers wide, loaded with ice, every 70 or 80 years, on a regular basis, for 4,500 million years. The result would not be a blue planet. It would be a riddled planet, a cosmic Swiss cheese, scarred beyond recognition. And then we return to the contradiction. If the explanation is endogenous, the initial heat would have evaporated everything. If it is magnetic, how can moons without magnetism have oceans? If it depends on distance, Earth should not have surface water. And if it is exogenous, the number of impacts turns the hypothesis into caricature. Thus, where science tries to give certainties, cracks appear, and those cracks force us to ask another question. What if the explanation lies neither in comets nor in the mantle, but somewhere else? On a planet in formation, incandescent, with temperatures above 1,000 degrees, vapor retention would have been minimal. Then, how can we explain the current abundance? Numbers corner science. Wherever you look, the account does not add up. And in parallel with this theoretical dilemma, archaeology adds a new problem: the sunken cities. All around the world there are remains of towns that were swallowed by the sea. In India, the structures of the Gulf of Cambay and the mythical Dwarka submerged 30 meters deep, dated at more than 9,000 years. Off the coasts of Egypt, the city of Heraklion disappeared under the Mediterranean and was found intact in the year 2000. In Japan, the Yonaguni formations show steps and terraces 25 meters underwater, linked to a lost civilization. In Greece, the city of Helike was swallowed by the sea in the year 373 before Christ, preserved on the seabed for centuries. And in Cuban waters, at 600 meters deep, pyramidal structures were found that are still debated today. The disturbing thing is not only their existence, but the mismatch with official history. We are told that 10 to 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last glaciation, humanity was still nomadic, incapable of building coastal cities. And yet, the remains seem to shout the opposite. To this contradiction, another enigma is added. Almost every culture in the world preserves the memory of a great flood. The Sumerians told it in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Hebrews in Genesis, the Mayas in the Popol Vuh, the Greeks in the myth of Deucalion, and similar stories appear in India, in China, in North America, and in South America. Too many coincidences to dismiss them as mere legends. If water was always here, why those universal accounts of sudden and devastating floods? And if it came only from space, how do we explain the lack of sufficient traces of comet bombardment? Here is where I allow myself to propose a third possibility. Earth, in its helical journey around the Sun through the galaxy, may have crossed clouds of interstellar water. It is not so far-fetched. In the year 2011, astronomers discovered a gigantic cloud of water vapor in space, with a volume equivalent to 140 trillion times all the water in Earth's oceans. If such gigantic concentrations exist, why should there not be others, smaller ones, still invisible to our current technology? I imagine Earth as a grain of sand entering a fish tank, crossing through a region of suspended microdrops. Some would evaporate, but some could have been captured by Earth's gravity, entering as vapor and later condensing into the oceans. Such a scenario would not only explain Earth's abundance of water, but also the universal memories of a sudden flood. Perhaps they were not metaphors, perhaps they were not shared myths, perhaps they were memories. The collective memory of a real catastrophe, Earth crossing a sea of water in outer space. And if it happened once, what guarantees do we have that it could not happen again in 10, 15, 50 or 100 years?